Welcome back into NFL Daily. I am Tom Downey. Coming up on today's show, the latest on a potential, likely, Jalen Ramsey trade. Aaron Rodgers updates with, this is all very Rodgers-y, let's put it that way. And what, if any, alternative plans the Steelers have behind Rodgers at QB in terms of could Kirk Cousins be an option? Before we dive into that, the two big players we discussed on today's show, Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Rodgers. Who gets a new team first? J for Jalen Ramsey, A for Aaron Rodgers. Let me know in the comments of today's show. Let's begin with the latest on Ramsey. Those trade rumors haven't really left, but they're very much back at the forefront thanks to a pretty significant report from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. He mentioned 3 teams as potential destinations for Jalen Ramsey. The Los Angeles Rams, not a huge surprise. They've been linked on a pretty consistent basis. The Washington Commanders, and the Dallas Cowboys. So we'll break down all 3 here. I do anticipate a Jalen Ramsey trade happening at some point after June 1st. We might get news of it beforehand, actually, but a post-June 1st trade for Ramsey just seems to make the most sense for everybody involved here. The Dolphins save money. We'll talk about the contractual stuff here in a little bit. He's still a good football player. The Dolphins have openly stated, yeah, we're going to trade him. Like, they're just kind of seemingly embracing that as an option. I wonder if at least one of these teams, as we'll get into that was mentioned, was a leak by Miami to drive up more interest. Maybe even 2 of them were leaks by the Dolphins to drive up more interest in what has been a market, but not the strongest market out there for the contractual stuff we'll get into here on today's show. So, who will trade for Jalen Ramsey? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Shoot your shot. Make your prediction right now. Who you think ends up trading for Jalen Ramsey? We'll go team by team here, starting with the Dallas Cowboys. That's kind of why I mentioned the Cowboys at the front. Got ahead of myself. There are additional conflicting reports about the Cowboys' interest level in Jalen Ramsey, most notably from Ed Warder, the former ESPN reporter, says, I do not believe this, referring to Ramsey and the Cowboys, has even been a topic of discussion within the Cowboys at this time. My theory is the Dolphins leaked the Cowboys' interest, quote unquote, in an effort to help their trade talks, get more interest, get more strong offers, boost the offers they've gotten from other NFL teams. The best way to create a market is to drive up the demand. That increases the return you're going to get on your potential trade. It would not be the first time that's been done with the Cowboys, and certainly will not be the last. Normally it's more of a free agency thing, but this one, it's kind of what Brian brought us into that too. One of the ex-Cowboys scout, now does radio for the Cowboys. Kind of felt like they were getting, through no fault of their own, kind of, being used as leverage. Now, the Rams have long been linked to Ramsey. Every time there's a mention of a Jalen Ramsey trade, who could it be? Rams end up being pretty high on that list. There's an obvious pass there. There is a connection. What Fowler kind of mentioned right before we got into the Cowboy stuff was the money's an issue. The Dolphins, again, it makes sense for them to wait after June 1st instead of eating $12.5 million in cap space this year. They save a little under 6. That difference then goes to next year, is what it is. The cash matters here. And the cap hit is extremely manageable, actually, for Jalen Ramsey. It's like a little under $6 million, I think, in 2025, right in that ballpark. The cash is different. The cash is what the new team owes. It's about $21 million, actually a little bit more than that, each of the next 3 years. Not all of that is guaranteed, but if you trade for Jalen Ramsey, you're paying him for $21 million for 1 year, or $42 million for 2. Or up and up until he's at free agent 2029. Now, again, that money can be pushed off in the future. You're not going to owe all of it in 1 year. But that $21.1 million in cash that he's owed is a problem for teams. Dolphins don't want to eat more than what they're already paying him. Teams don't want to pay all of it. As a result, that brings down the value. Because you're not just paying for Ramsey. You're paying for Ramsey at that $21 million figure. So with that in mind, because I think maybe a 4th is what you end up getting for Ramsey right now, what draft pick is Jalen Ramsey worth given the contract? The contract matters here. Sound off in the comments of today's show. The Commanders I'm also kind of intrigued by / borderline confused by. It's interesting. this kind of falls into a similar category of the Cowboys of, Fowler's argument was, well, they've made trades recently. Commanders have too. They're also down a second and a fourth in next year's draft class because they've already made trades for Laramie Tunsil and Marshawn Lattimore. I'll be honest, I don't see corner as a huge need for Washington. They have Marshawn Lattimore. They have Trey Amos, who they drafted very early this past year, relatively speaking. They have Jonathan Jones on a one-year deal. They have Mikey Samuels, who can play inside and outside. Noah Igbenogany actually proved his role as a decent nickel corner. There's your five. Plus a sixth guy if you want for special teams like, Seymour or Alan George or something. Bobby Price. I don't actually view corner as a sizable need for Washington, which just makes me wonder if the Cowboys and the Commanders were put on that list leaked from Miami in an effort to drive up interest because they included, these teams have made moves recently, therefore they could do it again. Let's hit Aaron Rodgers. Steelers owner Art Rooney II confirmed they are still willing to wait on Rodgers, and the wait continues on him, which is kind of getting into the you got to make a decision here, Aaron, at some point soon category. Rodgers did hint at joining the Pittsburgh Steelers again, which we will break down what that hint was. It's all Rodgers, it's all cryptic in the end. Before we dive into that, you can get a jersey deal by going to chatsports.com/jersey deal. Officially licensed NFL jerseys, all your favorite players, the official Nike Legend jerseys for under $100. You don't have to pay the $150, whatever cost it is these days. Officially licensed NFL jerseys. Chatsports.com/jersey deal. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Clickable one in the corner over there as well. So part of some Q&A session Rodgers did publicly, he was asked, would you ever play for the Bears? He said no. But I believe there's a team that might play in Chicago this year on a road trip. I don't know, not sure. Got to check it out. I love Chicago, though, way more than they love me. It's been a great relationship, all one way. So first off, he just can't resist throwing shade at Chicago. Objectively funny, though. The Bears, some opponents this year. Vikings, he was linked to them. Cowboys, nope. Saints, we'll come back to that in a second. Giants, not anymore. Steelers in Week 12. Browns, he's not going to play for them. And then obviously Green Bay's not going to happen. The implication here is, Steelers could make some sense. Saints, however, do not. Rodgers asked, would you play for the Saints? He said no. That's the answer. No. I've played there a couple times, but no. The answer is no. I'm too old. I don't want to live in Louisiana. Sorry. First off, I think that's actually a cool spot to be. Got great food. Bad take by Rodgers, but it's clearly not going to happen. So where does that leave us? Right where we've been. All signs point to Aaron Rodgers signing at some point, your guess as good as mine when, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we are very much at the point where okay, got to start making some decisions here, Aaron. More on that in a second, but we will have more updates for you all off-season long. Don't miss any NFL news, rumors, videos, updates. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Here's what Schefter recently reported on Aaron Rodgers. My guess is going to wind up going there. We heard Art Rooney, the team owner, say expect Rodgers to sign there. They have a mandatory minicamp from June 10 to 12. I would think that Rodgers on the table here in the next week or so. That next week or so is almost here because they'll start OTAs on May 27th. It would be ideal if your starting quarterback shows up to organize team activities when he has a new playbook and a new team to learn everything with. I think you're kind of setting yourself up for failure if you're not there as the quarterback. If TJ Watt wants to get in a contract dispute, okay, I get it. He knows the defense. He knows the team. He knows the playbook. Rodgers doesn't. Minicamp is mandatory, June 10 to 12. Training camp is in July late, probably. You got to make a decision here, Aaron. If I'm Pittsburgh, I'm at the point where, if he's not there, call it 2 weeks, we got to go in a different direction. We'll discuss the potential different direction here, but predictions. Will the Steelers sign Aaron Rodgers? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments of today's show. As of right now, let's all be honest here. The Steelers do not have a viable starting quarterback on the roster if it is not Aaron Rodgers. The QBs currently on this team are Mason Rudolph, who, hey, if he's your backup, fine. He couldn't hold the job over Will Levis. Don't tell me he's a good starter, even a starter. Will Howard, I think, can develop into a nice backup QB. I don't think you want to start a 6th-round pick at rookie. Let's just ignore the outlier of all outliers in Tom Brady. It doesn't ever really happen. Then it's Skylar Thompson. That is an unserious quarterback room. So, what's the alternative? Could it be Kirk Cousins? ESPN's Jeremy Fowler mentioning this, and I'll just kind of skim over it because it's a bit wordy. He says he has conversation with people this week that lead me to believe the Steelers, that Kirk Cousins is on the Steelers' radar if something were to fall through on Rodgers. Cousins has $37.5 million in guarantees between this year and next year. Somebody's on the hook for that. So to facilitate a trade, Atlanta would need a team to offset some of that money, whether it's $4 million, $20 million, whatever it is. But the feeling around the league is Atlanta has not been willing to budge on this. They haven't shown a lot of interest in trading Cousins. It would take a hefty price tag for another team to wiggle that out. As one source told me, if they're willing to take a small percentage of that money, say it's $7 or $8 million that Cousins is owed, a deal would be done by now. There was interest earlier in the offseason. Right now, Pittsburgh might be the only hope for Cousins, or he's staying in Atlanta. A trade is easier on Atlanta with the dead money that they would eat after June 1st. So what happens if Rodgers isn't at OTAs in 2 days? Does that change things for Pittsburgh? Cousins wasn't good last year, though. He really struggled down the stretch, and for an offense that likes to lean on play actions and sometimes rollouts, that's not, you don't want to have Kirk do that. They can do play action, middle of the field stuff, but he also wasn't as willing. There's a lot of uncertainty right now in Pittsburgh at QB. Rodgers seems like plan A. Cousins seems like plan B. What does the money look like? And if it's not Steelers for Cousins, does he actually just stick as the Falcons' backup QB? That might be their plan.